Nithyanandam, everyone, welcome back. Nice to see you again. Let us begin episode 4, chanting Sadguru Vandanam. Nithyanandam Paramashukaram Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sarisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunaraitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Yes, Nithyanandam, welcome to the early history of the Ramakrishna movement, episode 4. We are reviewing the last page of the previous episode to just get caught up. It was left to the genius of Swami Vivekananda to correctly read its meaning, observing in Shri Ramakrishna's life the convergence of the spiritual experiences of the entire world over the millennia and the redemptive implications of these revelations as applied to the problems of humanity in both the present and the future. Swamiji garnered the spiritual harvest of his master with his own hands, and entrusted his brother monks and monastic disciples with the responsibility of preserving and disseminating the seeds of his master's spirit. Swamiji believed that Sri Ramakrishna's advent was for the regeneration of all mankind. He did not stop with belief. He dedicated himself heart and soul to the execution of the cause of his master's mission. Explaining his role in this context, Swamiji wrote in a letter dated 26 May 1890, "Now his behest to me was that I should devote myself to the service of the order of all renouncing devotees founded by him, and in this I have to persevere. Come what may, being ready to take heaven, hell, salvation, or anything that may happen to me. His command was that his all-renouncing devotees should group themselves together, and I am entrusted with seeing to this." The Master's organizing faculty. To understand how all this came about, we have to look back at the period between 11th of December 1885 and 16th of August 1886. When Sri Ramakrishna lived in the Kasipur Garden House at 90 Kasipur Road, Calcutta. The Kasipur Garden saw the birth of the Ramakrishna order of monks. For a while it also cradled the newborn monastic brotherhood. Reminding his brother disciple Swami Brahmananda of this, Swamiji wrote on 13th July 1897, "All our associations center on that garden. In reality, that is our first mat." Equally significant is Holy Mother's remark. At the Kasipur garden, the Master spent the last days of his life. The place is associated with so much meditation, samadhi, and the practice of austerities. It is the place where the Master entered into Mahasamadhi. It is a place permeated with an intense spiritual vibration. One realizes God consciousness by meditating there. The garden house was virtually, if not conventionally, the first monastery. Besides, here the disciples saw the Master giving away his spiritual treasures without stint to one and all. All these now remain in the bosom of the Sangha. Even apart from the spiritual values attached to the Kasipur garden, the history of this period is very important. The facts, legends, and forces that constitute that history need to be analyzed in order to understand the processes involved in the growth and development of the Ramakrishna movement. Though Kasipur garden was hired primarily for the medical treatment and nursing of the master, it turned into a center for the training of selected youths who were to serve in the vanguard of his noble mission. While the young disciples gave themselves to loving and devoted service of the master, the latter here breathed the spirit of renunciation into their burgeoning, vigorous minds. He also helped them build a corporate life with a common purpose and understanding. His deep concern to this end has been aptly expressed by an eyewitness, Sharada Devi. She once observed the master had the power to die at will. He could have easily given up the body in samadhi, but he would say, "It would be nice if I unite all these youngsters together in a close bond of love." Until then, merely a how do you do relationship existed between them. Naran Babu, how are you? Rakal Babu, how do you do? And so on. That is why the master did not give up the body early, in spite of so much suffering. The master's devotees were sifted into inner and outer circles. The master began to focus special attention on the development of the devotees of the inner circle. Here the master also predicted that a band of young disciples with Narendra as their leader would in due course renounce the world and devote themselves to the realization of God and the service of humanity. He also infused into their minds the necessary drive and skill to implement his ideas. Ramakrishna gave them the desire and the fortitude to engage in a lifelong struggle, not to merely talk of, but rather to live the life. Years later, on 27 January 1900, Swami Vivekananda, in his talk entitled "My Life and Mission," said, "1,000 times despondency came, but there was one thing always to keep us hopeful: the tremendous faithfulness to each other, the tremendous love between us, and that was there with us all throughout that hard time." As the last days were approaching, the Master, with redoubled energy, set out to mold the spiritual lives of his disciples, particularly Narendra. During this period, the Master revealed his true identity to the devotees by declaring himself a divine incarnation. At Kasipur, his disciples saw the greatest manifestation of his spiritual powers. Although he remained merged most of the time in the ineffable bliss of communion with God, he moved forward to the actualization of his divine mission. The Master organized the world-renouncing disciples under the leadership of Narendra. The Master systematically prepared him to take up the responsibility. On Saturday, 11th February 1886, the ailing Master wrote on a piece of paper, "Jai Radhe Premamai Naran Siksha Dib Yakan Gare Bar Hak Dib Jai Radhe." Victory to Radha, love personified. Naran will teach others when he will call out from within as well as outside the country. Narendra rebelled and said, "I won't do that." But the Master said firmly, "Your very bones will make you do it." Then one evening in May, as Narendra was meditating, he attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi. His soul was bathed in ineffable peace. His heart was full to overflowing with joy. When he presented himself before the Master, the latter said, "Now the Mother has shown you everything, but the realization, like the jewel locked in a box, will be hidden from you. I will keep the key with me. When you have finished doing Mother's work on earth, then the box will be unlocked and you will know everything you did just now. 3 or 4 days before the dissolution of his body, the Master mysteriously transmitted his power to Narendra. Endowed with spiritual prowess, Narendra was now being prepared to fulfill the Master's mission. Every evening the Master would call Narendra to his room, and for 2 to 3 hours he would instruct him on various topics. J.J. Goodwin, learning of it from Swamiji or from one of his brother disciples, wrote to Mrs. Ole Bull on 23rd May 1897, when the Paramahamsa was passing away, he called in all his disciples but Swamiji, Naren, and gave them an express command that they were always to pay every attention to Swamiji and never to leave anything undone that could add to his health or comfort. Then sending them out and calling in Swamiji, he committed all the other disciples into his charge. Thus it was during the Kasipur period that Narendra was securely placed as a leader of the Holy Brotherhood. Sri Sarada Devi had come there to nurse the ailing Master and prepare his diet. However, during this period, the Master also commissioned her to carry on the spiritual ministration he had started. Gradually it dawned on the Brotherhood that she was the embodiment of his Shakti. She too rose to the occasion and proved herself to be the mother molder of the Sangha. Recognizing the significant role she had played during the formative period of the order, Swamiji in his lecture entitled My Life and Mission said, "Who would sympathize with the imaginations of a boy, imaginations that cause so much suffering to others? Who would sympathize with me? None except one. That lady, his wife, was the only one who sympathized with the idea of those boys." Wow. Thank you, everyone. That is our completion of today's segment. With this, we've come to the completion of today's installment of the early history of the Ramakrishna movement reading. Complete this session chanting in Purna Mantra. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Bhagavad Shri Nithyananda Paramashiva Parukar Purnamastu. Om Nithyanandam. Nithyananda, everyone, thank you. If you're also reading or you've found the book or have been reading it, please share. Because yes, I'm also very excited about it. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Nithyanandam.